John Guandolo is on the line with us, former FBI agent, Counterterrorism Division, Washington, D.C., founder of UnderstandingTheThreat.com, author of 2 books, the latest, Raising a Jihadi Generation. UnderstandingTheThreat.com is the website. John, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Tom, for having me, and really appreciate the opportunity to be on. And I just wanted to say, by the way, I'm very grateful for all the work you and your wife do for the community, especially for children. So thanks for doing that.
Well, thank you, John. Your publicist's pitch had a headline that had me scratching my head. It said, "The refusal by our leaders to know the enemy and destroy them leads to catastrophic consequences." We just had a situation where we were attacked in Benghazi. The president surgically extracted the leader of that operation. We now have him in custody as of yesterday. And there are a few others who are on the most wanted list, and I think that they're gonna fall too. If after 9/11 Bush had just gone into Afghanistan and taken out bin Laden and gone into Pakistan and taken out Muhammad Atta, rather than bombing these two countries back to the Stone Age, wouldn't we all be a hell of a lot better off?
No, I don't believe we would have. I understand the perspective of that, but no. And the reason the answer is no is because at a global level, what we're experiencing, and we're seeing it right now in Iraq, but now also in many other places, is a global movement. And the enemy calls it the global Islamic movement. They say exactly why they're doing it and what it is they seek to attain, which is reestablishing a global Islamic state, a caliphate, under which Sharia law is the law of the land. And they're using an entire myriad of ways in which they're seeking to do this, including overthrowing countries and the kind of violence we're seeing, but also in Europe and the United States through subversion and through information campaigns, political warfare, social campaigns, all kinds of stuff. And because we don't understand this, and by the way, to be clear, it's not just an issue with the current administration. I believe it was a failure in the Clinton administration, it was a failure in the Bush administration, on both sides of the political aisle at the leadership level, and it's now continuing, is that there is either one or the other. There's either a focus on just the kinetic warfare, so as you said, of the bombings and just the military stuff, without understanding that this is part of a larger movement that's, in my mind, self-evident. And I think if we look at what the enemy says they're doing and why they're doing it, and the fact they are doing it, it becomes pretty self-evident. But the fact that we're seeing numerous countries being overthrown, tens of thousands of people being killed, and the movement is growing and getting more dangerous as it goes.
Yeah, and I would say that we've been feeding it. I mean, the argument that you're making right now is the argument that King George II originally, and then his successor, King George III, who we ultimately revolted against, made about us. They said, these rebels in the United States, they're spreading a dangerous idea that you don't need kings, that the age of kingdoms is not only over, but it's a terrible thing, and that people can govern themselves without, having a lineage that has been blessed by God. And this is a dangerous idea. This idea needs to be stamped out, and we're going to go into that land that they are occupying, and we're going to squash them. And, we didn't take very kindly to that. I don't disagree that if you go back before the Bush era, that there was there has always been, actually, a reactionary, largely Sunni, but also among Shia Islam, a reactionary fringe. And after we funded bin Laden to throw the Soviets out of Afghanistan, as you'll recall, I'm sure you know this history, he went back to Saudi Arabia. He gathered up a couple thousand guys with his own money. He was a multimillionaire, and a millionaire's the son of a billionaire. Gathered a couple thousand guys and went to the Iraq border and was going to take down Iraq because Saddam Hussein was allowing men to drink alcohol and women to drive cars and go to college and have professional careers, and they didn't have to wear headscarves. He tried to invade Iraq. The king of Saudi Arabia, had him arrested, had him stripped of his citizenship, had him flown to Somalia, where his mother was from, and dumped. And at that point, that the whole Bin Laden thing, the whole Al Qaeda thing, you had the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, you had Qutb, back in the 50s, who had started this thing. You had the Bin Laden variety of it. They were all fairly small and all fairly marginalized. And even Saudi Arabia, which was sponsoring things like textbooks for children saying that Jews used Arab blood to make matzah. I mean, Saudi Arabia is a big bad player in this thing, and we completely ignore that constantly, and we continue to ignore that. But even that was I mean, they were just, they'd made a deal with the devil back in the 40s when they cut the deal with, I'm forgetting his name, the guy that that was the kind of the spiritual godfather of all this. But we just poured fire on that, or poured gasoline on that fire. When Bill Clinton tried to kill Osama bin Laden with 3 cruise missiles and missed him by 30 minutes, Newt Gingrich went on the floor of the House of Representatives and said, he's just doing this to distract us from the impeachment hearings. It's the tail wagging the dog. He shouldn't have done that. But if he had taken out bin Laden with that, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Well, okay, a couple things. One, you started with, you see my argument as being similar to the king talking about the revolutionaries in America.
No, that you're in as much as what we're fighting against is an idea, and what we're fighting against is nationalism. People in their own country. You can't. We won the war in Afghanistan and Iraq within the first couple of weeks. We lost the occupation.
But this is the entire crux of the argument. Is that we're not fighting nationalism. We're fighting a global movement that identifies itself, not me identifying it or anyone else. They identify the Muslim Brotherhood, Al Qaeda, all the jihadi organizations, including the Islamic countries, which have literally proffered treaties and documents to the United Nations, which make clear that their objective, in the case of the Islamic countries under the Organization of Islamic Conference, the largest international body, second only to the United Nations, that their objective is to spread Sharia, which they define as human rights, and that's the only way they define it.
Well, John, you have to acknowledge, within the Muslim world and the Muslim community, and even within these governments, there are very, very different definitions of what Sharia law means.
That's actually not true.
There are, just like there are different definitions of what Judeo-Christian law means.
100% of all published Sharia obliges jihad until the entire world is under Sharia. 100%.
There are different definitions of what jihad means.
As Sharia that does not include that.
We have Americans who say that Judeo-Christian law. We had an American legislator last week who said that gays should be stoned to death.
That's getting away from the subject. We don't have somebody saying what Judeo-Christian law is or what Jewish halakha.
What I'm saying is, John, I think that you're making my point is that we're going against an idea, and you don't go against an idea with bombs. You go against an idea with an idea, with a better idea.
But
if we had been building schools for girls in Afghanistan,
but before you and I can go against an idea with an idea, you have to understand what Sharia and the idea is.
I think I understand it quite well.
This idea that there are thousands of versions of Islamic law is simply not factually true, and it's not a reasonable debate until we both stand on the same ground and say, okay, here are the facts, here's the truth. Now. All
right. Well, we're not going to reach that. But John, you've got the last word. Thank you for dropping by. Hang on just a second here.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
John Guandolo, FBI agent, former FBI agent, and author of Raising a Jihadi Generation, UnderstandingTheThreat.com. Thank you, John.
Thanks for having me.